All right.
And it's time for you to roll there, Miss Mindy.
Okay, rock and roll. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help. It's always good to see you.
And
Thank you everybody for joining me today. I'm Mindy with my NHD Natural Hazard Disclosures. I like to start off my presentation with the facts. 1994, the natural hazard disclosure industry was created, and it was because somebody purchased a home for several $1,000,000 in the Malibu area, and when it slid down the hill and they couldn't live in it any longer and it had no value left, who was the first person they called? You, the real estate agent. And it turned out that the agent representing the buyer neglected to disclose a letter she had received in the mail for her personal property. And because she was farming in that same neighborhood, because of the incident and because she neglected to disclose what she received in the mail, that she was in a liquefaction, landslide, earthquake zone, the natural hazard disclosure industry was created. And it was to prevent people from buying the most important, largest deal of their life, their house, and being safe and protected with maps from the state, the county, and most important, the local area to determine, are you in a flood zone, a fire zone, an earthquake zone? So my NHD has been in business since 1994. Eric Spitz owns our company. He started LGS and LGS retrofitting. In 2010, he started my NHD. So we've been in the industry from the very beginning. We have been in partnership with CAR on your zip forms since, oh gosh, I think it's 12 years now. Being in partnership with them means they've endorsed and approved us because we use state, county, city maps to write the reports. We request the APN number along with the property address, and we go to pull these maps to write the report. And what makes us the most complete and accurate report out there is because we use all of this data. We own all of our own data. We have our own engineers. And as a result, our track record is awesome, the best in the industry. We've never had a problem with any report ever. So we're here to keep you safe and protected. Our $10 million of E&O protects all of you in the transaction. So for the first time in 15 years, and I've been in this industry 16 and a half years now, there was never a new assembly bill until this year. The Assembly Bill 38 is to determine if you're in a high fire or a very high fire severity zone. And the only way that you'll know this is to know through the NHD report. So when you get your listing, that's when you want to order the report. You can go online, mynhd.com. You can call us on our 800 number, 800-814-2922, or you can contact me, although I'm just going to forward all your information to customer support because that's who writes the reports. So please keep in mind that when you are the buyer's representative and you are filling out your residential purchase agreement to make an offer, do not write seller's choice or leave it blank under the NHD space. And the reason is that since it's still a non-regulated industry, you don't want to have to receive whatever the listing agent wants to give you to represent the seller. You can go online and buy an NHD report for $50, but it doesn't have insurance maybe, or maybe doesn't use in the local maps or even the county maps. So it's not complete and it's not accurate, just to satisfy your fiduciary duty that you provided a report. So if you're the buyer's agent, you want to write in your contract, your RPA, who you want. And the reason is that way you can negotiate. I'm sorry, I don't want that report, Sergio, that you want to give me. I put in my contract, my NHD. They're the cheapest, no lawsuits ever, in partnership with CAR, and they protect everybody in the transaction with $10 million of E&O. That's why I use them for my clients. And we keep you safe and protected. So keep that in mind, because if you don't choose who you want with NHD, you are not in control of that part of your transaction. So before I show you my PowerPoint slides, does anybody have any questions right now? Okay. Great. I'm going to share my screen and show you this really cool, easy PowerPoint. So let's see, slideshow. Here we go. So the AB 38 is all about defensible space around your house to help keep it safe from basically catching on fire. So this is what the state looks like. And when you look at the light pink and the dark pink, these are the differences between high versus very high fire zones in the whole state of California. The new assembly bill that went into effect January 1st was that you have to disclose high fire and very high fire severity zone on the state level. It doesn't say anything about the county level and the local level. So some of these NHD companies that are in business, keep in mind, no one's regulating them, no one's governing them. And as long as they're doing the state responsibility fire zone, they're in compliance. But the problem is, read under what it says under red. Now the state and the local level have to be disclosed starting July the 1st. And that's because so many areas on the local level are popping up that they're in high fire and very high fire severity zones. If you only use the state map or even the county map, it's not complete. It's not accurate. If the house was built prior to 2010, this is when you need to provide the fire hardening defensible space advisory form that CAR created, and it was revised July the 1st to include the defensible space portion. A picture tells 1,000 words. So look at the difference between the county and the city level versus the state. So this is why the NHD provider that you choose for both your listing and your buyer is crucial. If you're only using a state map, obviously it's wrong, because county and city will always supersede the state because they're updated much more frequently. CAR created this signature page back in 1994 when the industry was created. And this is why the 6 items on this sheet are required by law per Civil Code 1103.7, which is at the bottom of this paragraph where it says the Civil Code. These 6 items of flood, fire, earthquake, liquefaction, landslide have been on this signature page always. Nothing has ever changed. The thing that's different now is that you have to disclose with an additional form if the house is older than 2010 and in this fire zone. So if it's not on the state map that you're in a high fire zone, it's not going to show up on the signature page because that's what CAR's requirement was. However, what if it's on the county level or the local level? My NHD has been doing a summary sheet forever. It's always been in our report. And as the report has grown over the years from 6, 12, 20, now as many as 40 different hazardous disclosures, we show you the disclosure on the left, and the checkbox yes is really the only thing that the buyer needs to focus on. Are they in a hazardous zone on their property or within a certain distance of their property, 1 mile, 2 miles? And if it is, look at the page that the details of that particular disclosure, what it's all about. So notice here that it says on the 3rd line down, a very high fire severity zone, a state California fire responsibility area, and they're both checked no. We have added 3 levels of fire on our disclosure summary sheet. And it's because of the very reason that if the house is located in a state area that's not fire, it won't show up on the signature page. If it is in the fire zone, like very high fire, local level, county level, that's when it's going to be on our sheet. Notice down here in the middle, supplemental fire hazard severity zone, AB 38. So the reason that says AB 38 is that it triggers this property is located in a severity zone of high fire. So obviously it's on the local level, and that's why it's on this sheet. We include very high fire just to make sure people are paying attention. 4 different places we've put it in the report in hopes that people read. And in addition to that, we've added the page that reflects what this exact specific disclosure is. So this is page 7, and where it was checked, yes, supplemental fire zone, very high. Notice that we checked it, yes, on page 7 as well. We give you all of the explanations. We give you very high in red in hopes you see it and read. And then the view map is to click on the map and see where is the house in relation to the fire zones. What went into effect January 1st was disclosing if the home is 1 to 4 units and older than 2010 in either of these very high fire severity zones. And basically the statement that says, if the house is located in these zones and built before this 2010 timeframe, you might need to consider improvements on your home. And this is where CAL FIRE and local fire departments will assess the property. And then once everything that needs to be done to prevent any additional issues, that's when the certificate is issued by CAL FIRE or the fire department to the homeowner. That's good for 1 year. What changed? Well, these are the 6 items that went into effect January 1st. And these are the items that are also on the page that needs to be given to the new buyer, checked off by the homeowner, not you. The agents are not allowed to help fill this out. And it's because the homeowner knows, did you make your home less vulnerable to wildfire and flying embers by taking care of these 6 items? So things like roof ventilation is huge, so that the vents have openings for at least an 1/8 of an inch of space for air to flow. Did they look at the roof coverings and make sure that any untreated wood or shingles or shakes are treated? Did they take care of the combustible landscaping or any other materials that are within 5 feet of the home or underneath the decks? Lots of people store all kinds of stuff under the decks, and it's very vulnerable. Did they change out their glass windows to non-tempered glass? Did they address loose or missing bird stoppings or roof flashings? Because this could also become an issue, just like the rain gutters, if they are not non-combustible. So these are the items that CAR created on the fire hardening defensible space form. When they updated the form this year, July, they added a new document that the homeowner or the person leasing the space must basically obtain. The 6 items I just showed you just need to be addressed. If the homeowner took care of everything, that's wonderful. But if they did not take care of everything yet before they close escrow or sell their house, then it goes on the shoulders of the new homeowner. And so the buyer and the seller go into an agreement, and there's of course a new CAR form for this, that the buyer agrees to obtain the proper compliant document after they have closed escrow. They have a year from the day they close to be in compliance with the state via CAL FIRE, or if it's more on the local level, with the local fire departments. And this is so that people can continue to sell their home, not be afraid that they didn't bring it up to the new requirements. This will be transferred on to the new homeowner, and this is when it's required, just like I was saying. 1 to 4 units, very high fire severity zones, and any closings after July 1st, which is of course now, needs to use this new fire hardening and defensible space advisory disclosure addendum. So CAR revised it July the 1st to add in defensible space and additional things that are going to be addressed. And they're looking into adding things consistently throughout the year and in the years to come. So for example, they'll be adding moderate fire zones, not just high, very high, and very high severity. So there's going to be a 4th zone, because every level of being in a fire area creates a new list of things the homeowner needs to do for defensible space. So look under 3B and you'll see those 6 items that I just reviewed. Those are the 6 items that the homeowner checks off on, and the seller. And when they sell their home, they don't need, again, to bring it up to compliance. They just need to check what they did, if anything. This is the second page where they sign it, then the buyer signs it, and then the seller gives the buyer the new form that says, buyer is now responsible for taking care of these things on their new property. And so my NHD has provided a link in all of our reports when you're in a fire zone. And this blue link takes you directly to CAL FIRE, and you can set up an inspection so that CAL FIRE will come to the home free of charge and determine what needs to be done. And here are some examples of what is defensible space. So the fire department would come out, or CAL FIRE, depending if you're in state zone or local zones of fire, and tell you what you have to do to properly clean and protect your home. So what that means basically is the buffer between you, your building, your house, the property, and the grass, trees, shrubs, or any wildlife area that's surrounding it. And this space is needed to slow or stop the spread of wildfire, or the embers that are, being passed from one home to the next or one tree to the next. So the proper defensible space is what is going to help save your house. There are zones 1 and 2 that currently are making up the defensible space zones. And depending on which one you're in will determine, is it 100 feet of space, or is it only 10 feet or 30 feet? And that the intensity of the wildlife fuel management varies depending on, the way the home is positioned in the land. So if the home starts, immediately within 100 feet of your property line versus a lot further out, that's what determines where is the perimeter of your house. So here's a great diagram to give you an example. Defensible space zones at zone 1 are 30 feet or 10 feet, depending on where the trees and the brush are. So for example, if you're in a high fire zone, you certainly don't want to be planting plants that are combustible next to the house and the windows, right? And if you do plant something, it needs to be non-combustible, and they can guide you, CAL FIRE, on what kind of plants you can buy to plant for a safer environment. If you're in zone 2, look at the difference from the house to the end of the property and where the trees may start or stop. You may have 100 feet of clearance that you need to do. It also determines if you are on an angle, vertical, and horizontal space, which we'll get to in a minute. Zone 1, lean, clean, and green zones. So again, this is just some more detailed information about what needs to be done to protect zone 1, extending 30 feet in general from the property. So whether you have dead and dry leaves or pine needles or any kind of roof and ring gutters that are just, old and tired, or they're housing things that could go up in smoke, this is why they need to be removed on a regular basis. The same with the trees being cut and the branches are at a minimum, depending on, how big they are from the other trees, so they don't fly ambers one to the other. Same thing with dead branches with the chimney, how far away it needs to be kept. Removing, again, plants that are flammable and shrubs away from the windows, and any kind of vegetation that could be catching on fire near balconies, stairs. People like to store things and don't realize that it could catch up on fire in a heartbeat and then, poof, right? So you need a lot of open space and separation between these things for obvious reasons. If you're in the zone 2, you have even more to do. So you extend your levels from 30 up to 100 feet from the property or the building or structure, whatever's closer. and you have to mow your grass a maximum of 4 inches. So they have other requirements based on what the specifics are to your home, which is why when we say CAL FIRE or the fire department comes to your house and tells you what you need to do, then they come back when they say they will, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is. And if you haven't taken care of it, very often they'll fine you. They give you a new date to complete the work. And if you don't do it, then the city will come, like in Malibu, my brother lived there for 20 years. If his neighbors did not clear the grass and the trees and the shrubs and take care of what was expected of them for the fire department, then the fire department would give them a bill and someone would actually come and physically do it on the property. So they're not waiting for the homeowner to get their stuff together. This is really serious. And now that there's a new assembly bill, it's even more obviously in the front of everybody's mind. So just take a look at what these requirements are and how clearly, depending on zone 1, zone 2, to reduce the fuel level of fire is just huge. The local ordinances are always going to supersede state and county. So that's why many local government agencies have local ordinance on defensible space. So theirs may be more stringent than the one that the state gave you or the one that the county gave you. Makes sense, right? But the local fire department or fire protection district might have additional requirements based on what they've noticed in the neighborhood. So this is vertical space. And again, a picture is 1,000 words, right? It shows you exactly what is going on, depending on the height of the tree and how much space could be around it. This one is horizontal clearance. So if you've got a slope and it's less than 20%, obviously you don't have to clear as much. But as the slope gets more and more severe, you can clearly see it goes from flat to mild, then mild to moderate, 20 to 40% increase. And then anything greater than 40% is moderate to a steep slope. And a steep slope becomes more dangerous. So this is why these requirements are crucial. And again, the landscaping, it's not like you can't do landscaping. It's just that you must choose the right plants for your property that are going to resist the spread of fire. So a lot of times people go ahead and buy plants that they love and these beautiful waving, grasses that catch on fire and go up in smoke super fast. The fire department may ask you to take them out because it's just, not the right one. And it's dangerous, actually. So if you do landscaping, you need to know what can you plant before you plant it, and then might have to dig it back up if it's not the right things. My NHD provides $10 million of E&O insurance to everybody in the transaction. So we protect the buyer, the seller, the listing agent, the selling agent, the transaction coordinator if you use one, and your escrow officer. You don't need any money up front to pay for our report. You can call us, go online, mynhd.com, or email us. You'll get it in about 15 minutes if everything's accurate, and you pay through escrow. So if it doesn't close for any reason, and we don't care why, you never pay for our report. If you are ordering a residential report, it's $74.95. A commercial report, which is 5 or more units, is $89.95. And the premium report, which means environmental, is $94.95. And that's because the $20 environmental report is extra because it's giving you additional information of what's going on underneath the ground. And a lot of people want to see what's happening on that property under the ground. So if you are the buyer's agent, I highly recommend that you include that on your RPA residential purchase agreement when you make your offer. You'll notice that it's right next to the box that you check for NHD. And the reason that you want to do that is that as the buyer's agent, You do want all of the reports that you could possibly get to show the buyer to protect them. If you are the listing agent, it is not required by law to provide the environmental report. So some people think it's over disclosing. So even though it's only $20 and it's not a big deal, if you don't need it and it's not required per the Civil Code 1103.7, very often attorneys say, don't give it unless buyer's agent asks for it. And if they do, that's when you want to provide it. If you are the buyer's agent and you write my NHD in the offer, and the listing agent representing the seller says, oh, but I already have this other NHD here, just take this one. The best way to respond is, thank you so much. But and in writing, of course, because don't forget, real estate is not a verbal conversation. Everything is in writing. So in writing, no, thank you. I don't want that report. It's no different really than they're asking a listing price of $1 million and maybe somebody comes in with a different offer. Now, right now, of course, there's multiple offers and sometimes they're way, way above asking, as we all know. But what if the days were when it was $1 million and you wanted to offer $995, $980, or whatever you want to offer, or more? Everything in real estate's negotiable. So don't be afraid that if you write my NHD in your offer, that your offer won't be accepted. Your offer isn't accepted because it's usually a lousy offer, or if they want to call out the services, I hate to say it, it's usually title and escrow that people really want who they want because that particular rep or vendor is going to protect them. Those are all regulated industries that are governed, like the Department of Insurance. So when they're governed, the guts of the reports are the same. The NHD industry is not regulated, which means the guts of the report are not the same, except that one signature sheet. So let me give you a little story that just happened a couple of weeks ago that was really upsetting to me. I got a call in a panic from the buyer's agent. Her client is living currently in Beverly Hills. They live in a condo. They're selling it to move to this gorgeous home in Riverside that's really beautiful, but they're in a very high fire severity zone and they cannot get insurance from 10 different insurance carriers. So the buyer's agent calls me and says, oh my God, I don't know what to do. We can't get insurance. And they're starting to flip out. What do you recommend? Well, you talk to them. Sure. So she sets up a Zoom call, not even a phone call. And it turns out she didn't even have the My NHD report. She wrote nothing and left it blank because she was afraid her offer wouldn't get accepted. Well, her offer got accepted. She received this other NHD company's report, which said, by the way, it was not in a fire zone. And meanwhile, she can't get fire insurance anywhere, 10 different locations, except the California Fair Plan. And I think it was like $40,000. So it was a lot of money for fire insurance alone. Well, it turns out when it wasn't my report, I explained that I don't know how her report was written, but how can you have a report that says you're not in a fire zone? And clearly you have 10 insurance companies stating you can't get fire insurance. So she said, well, I thought I would just order the My NHD report after we opened escrow. And that way I'd make sure everything was complete because I only use you, Mindy. But I was afraid to write it in on my offer. Well, what happened was her client, the buyer, already read the NHD, signed the NHD. So that means that she accepted the NHD. Once it's signed, you cannot go back and unsign it. It means you've agreed to move forward on the transaction. If you don't sign it because you're concerned about the material fact that's affecting the desirability and the value of the house, which is why this report was created and written in the first place, then you say, I don't know if I can buy this house. I can't get insurance from 10 different carriers. And until I know I can move forward, I need to verify what else is going on this property. So I'm not signing it yet. And they don't have to. They can pull out of the deal because of material fact. So the scary part is that it turned out the buyer had been in a fire when she was 4 years old. And she started crying that she was petrified to live in a fire zone that was high fire. And what was my recommendation to her buying this house and moving forward. So I don't want to blow up the deal. I said, oh my God, I'm afraid of fire and I've never been in one. So I can't even imagine you surviving a fire at 4 years old, how you must feel. So Miss Fire, when you close your eyes at night and you think about how you feel to live in a home that you know is surrounded by the county with brush and trees that are high fire, I don't know what to say other than you have to be comfortable in your own skin, not your buyer's agent, not me, nobody, your mom, nobody, only you. And that's for anything with the natural hazards, whether it's a flood zone, earthquake zone, anything. Read the report. Well, the agents need to guide the client, the buyer. Read the report, click on all our blue links. They're from the government agencies. They give you valuable information. You click on all of the maps that relate to this exact property and APN number. The map will come up and you'll see, where are you in that fire zone, flood zone, earthquake zone, 2 miles from an approved FAA landing facility. We don't just tell you yes or no, you're near an airport. My NHD says you're within 2 miles. So they'll say, let's say 1.5 miles. They give you the name of the airport. Is it public? Is it private? And so we give you lots of extra information so the buyer can gather it, determine, do they want to move forward on this deal? And your job as agents is to just be there and guide them and give them the most complete, accurate report you can with a company like ours, who's there to protect you and everybody. So if you ever have questions, I'm available. Our 800 number where our customer support is available. And we're here for you if you need more help. So I will put my information in the chat right now so that it will be available. And I miss seeing everybody live and in person because I like to make it interactive. And I also like to ask questions, to see kind of where you guys are and how you land on your feet when things occur. If you don't know the answer, it's okay. Just call the source that you think is going to have the answer so you can get back to people in a timely manner. And we're here for you as one of your resources. So I'm putting in the chat. My cell phone is 424-385-1179. And my email, mindy@mynhd.com. And then our customer support department, I'm going to put that in there now. Because a lot of times people email me, and quite frankly, I just turn right around and email customer support because I don't write the reports. Can you imagine if I got every single report in LA? Oh my God. So here we go. In the chat is my information as well as customer support. So does anybody have any questions at this time that you'd like to ask? Don't be shy. I know I ran over it quickly, but
I think it was good visuals, good information. I always
Right?
pull something from it. So I appreciate you taking the time to put something together that does give us that sight, that, vision,
Yeah.
of what to, like, you don't always think about those things, and we kind of rely sometimes on the buyers to do their own research, their own homework, whatever, when we should also be addressing that information.
Oh, absolutely. I got a call yesterday and guess what the question was? I mean, I had to be really careful not to be like, what? She calls me and she says, I'm taking a listing and the homeowner says they've never had a flood in their house or a fire. So that's all I have to go by, right? To make sure they're in those zones. Oh my God. And I'm like, you do know there's a natural hazard disclosure report, right? And it's your fiduciary duty representing the listing to get it. Oh, well, that's why I asked her, was she in a flood in the last 20 years living in her house? I'm like, no, it's not about 20 years. It's FEMA, a government agency that determines on maps of 58 counties, are you in 100-year floodplain?
And
It's not about
she's
the
not in the
homeowner.
class today, right?
And then what made it worse is that I said, oh my gosh, so if you don't have this and you're going into escrow and you don't even have your NHD, how do you know if you need to provide the home hardening defensible space form? And she says, what's that? Oh, you haven't heard of AB 38 that went into play January 1st and revised July 1st? No. And her answer was, I've been so busy. You know, I just haven't had time to do the meetings. I just haven't had time to go on CAR. And, you know, it's not my duty to like interrogate her, but it's like, I wanted to say, stop practicing real estate because you're not doing a good job and you're not.
You're a
clients.
lawsuit waiting to happen.
You are, exactly. You are like, she's like, oh, can you just share it with me? Can you go over it real fast? I sent her my slideshow and said, take the time to read it and do it. Because if she's not willing to take the time to learn,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be the one to help her. She needs to help herself too. And that's the problem. I hear so many agents are in deals with other agents. And when they say, am I in a high fire zone for my buyer? Am I going to be getting that form from CAR, the defensible space form? And the other client is like, what? That's when you know sometimes you end up doing all the work because the other agent doesn't know. And it's sad because this is how lawsuits could be avoided. And here's a note I'll just end on. 43% of all the lawsuits 2 years ago in real estate across the country came from California.
Wow.
That's almost half. So if you think of all the transactions across the country, that almost half come from this, that's sad. So anyway, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to those who joined us today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And if ever you have any questions, grab that information out of the chat.
Yeah.
And definitely reach out to Mindy. She is always willing to answer your questions and guide and support you. So thank you, Mindy.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you having
you.
you here today.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.